If you live in Irvine, or anywhere in Orange County for that matter, congratulations. You just received the largest gift in the history of Orange County. Watch now to find out just how big it is, just how close it is, and how you can use it. Coming up next on Irvine Scene. In case you're wondering what the largest gift in Orange County history is, I'll tell you. It's 20,000 acres of pristine Southern California real estate. Land that's been set aside and gifted by the Irvine Company strictly for the enjoyment of the residents of Orange County. Now, join us to find out just how incredible this land gift is and what it has to offer you. Our first stop was Loma Ridge, a popular hiking destination offering spectacular views. I was honored to have the company of two very influential men who are both passionate about this undertaking. Mark Denny, the director of OC Parks, and Michael O'Connell, the executive director of the Irvine Ranch Conservancy. I asked Michael to start from the beginning and explain how this magnanimous gift came into existence.
The first piece of open space actually was Irvine Regional Park, and it was given by the Irvine family to the County of Orange in 1897, and it was the first regional park in the state of California. And from those humble beginnings, it was only about 100 acres, and it was what the family called the picnic grounds. It was a beautiful oak woodland that still stands today.
Why would they want to do that? Why is that a choice?
Well, one of the unique things about the way the Irvine Ranch has been developed over time is it's always been part of a master plan. The land was 93,000 acres. It was actually 3 Spanish land grants that were put together by James Irvine and some partners in the middle 1800s. And they always had a vision of it as being a large contiguous piece of land. That vision has carried forward with the Irvine family and then the Irvine Company when Donald Bren took over the company. And so thinking of it as a large landscape has led to the idea of open space as being part of it, development as being part of it, and this large open space is the culmination of that vision. Crystal Cove State Park, for example, was a bargain sale from the Irvine Company to the state of California. The Irvine Open Space Preserve that I know a lot of residents of the city of Irvine enjoy all of the time was part of a 1988 initiative in the city where the voters approved a measure that set aside 50% of the city in open space. So a lot of that land was in exchange for increased density of housing in other places. And so what the city of Irvine residents enjoy now is really nicely planned, developed areas and then an awful lot of open space. So that was another way. The final piece actually in 2001 was when the Irvine Company gave conservation easements over 11,000 acres of the North Ranch behind me to the Nature Conservancy, which is a nonprofit conservation organization. And that was simply an outright gift. It was protected in exchange for retiring the development rights.
Well, so this is the last 20,000 completes the entire 93,000 acre Irvine Ranch puzzle. Is that true?
It essentially defines the boundaries of this master plan. If you look out in the distance, there's a set of power lines that runs about halfway up the hill at an angle. And everything on this side of that is part of that open space and part of the land gift. It then runs up to the top of the hill and off in this direction, and then everything you see in the vista that's in the foreground is about 10,000 acres, which is half of the gift.
So as far as the eye can see from this point is half of the gift.
Everything but those very tall mountains in the distance, which are the San Bernardinos. But basically everything that you can see in this view shed here is half of the land that was recently given to the county.
So what makes this land so special?
It's very special because it is in part of what we call a Mediterranean climate zone. There are only 5 of these zones in the entire world. They have about 2% of the land area on the planet, but they contain 20% of the plant species on the planet. So this is actually as as significant biologically as a coral reef or a rainforest. We can see things here that are rare and unique in the world. We have a species of tree, believe it or not, called the Tecate cypress tree, which is only found in 3 places on the planet, and one of them is on the North Irvine Ranch. Geologists said that it is like an open book of the last 80 million years of Earth's history. It is, if you know how to read it, like a geologist does, then you can actually read an 80 million year chronology of the western margin of North American continent. There are 14 different habitat types in Orange County. 12 of them are on this property. And they're really, really rare. Things like coastal sage scrub, that is, it's kind of a shrubby habitat, very fragrant plants. It's the thing that you see that's green in the springtime and then it gets brown when it gets dry. We have beautiful coast live oak woodlands that are nice and cool in the summertime when it's hot up here on the ridge. We have chaparral, we have native grasslands, which are one of the rarest habitats in all of California. About 1% to 2% of native grasslands remain in the entire state. And we have some excellent examples of native grasslands here on the land.
And if you happen to be a naysayer who thinks Michael might be dramatizing the situation, we've got a seal of approval from Sacramento and Washington, D.C. that says different.
Well, this land, actually almost 40,000 acres of this land has been named both a National Natural Landmark and a California Natural Landmark. It's the only property in California that has that designation. And what that means is that the property is so significant biologically and geologically that it's a national treasure. It ranks up there in the family of national parks and recreation areas and things that are significant not only to the people of California, but the entire nation. And the process it went through to be designated was actually extremely rigorous. There were 5 scientists that did a geologic evaluation and 5 scientists that did a biologic evaluation, and they both agreed that it met all of the criteria for designation as a landmark. And so we're very excited about that because it's symbolic more than anything else of the fact that this is not just open space. This is really, really important land. I mean, it ranks up there with national parks and with state parks, and it just happens to be owned and managed in a different way. When you start to look at what exists here and what condition it's in, you really realize how spectacular it is, and that's what led the designation.
And if you think you're not going to see any wildlife out here, think again. On the way to our next stop, Michael Eagle Eye O'Connell spotted an alligator lizard. Wow.
They're pretty aggressive predators.
Are they?
Yeah. They eat those harvester ants that we were talking about.
Oh, those red, yeah.
And they eat probably smaller lizards and all kinds of bugs.
Not to be outdone by Eagle Eye, I thought I'd show off my powers of observation. Mike, what is this square box in the middle of the woods?
Well, one of the ways that we monitor wildlife on the open space is with what are called camera traps. And basically, this is a remote camera that's triggered by movement. And it has a memory card in it, and it has batteries. And every 2 weeks, we come out and check the camera and take the camera card out, take it and put it in the computer and see what we get. And we monitor wildlife that way. Over the last 3 years, we've gathered 300,000 photographs of wildlife. And when you have a database that size, you can then look at patterns of wildlife activity, what times of year they use what areas. And this camera is monitoring this trail to Dripping Springs, and it shows what animals use this, and in fact what people use it as well. We frequently get mountain lions on this camera, at least once a week, and we get everything from families of skunks to deer to all kinds of interesting wildlife.
To us.
To us. That's exactly right. We're being photographed right now.
Outstanding. We soon arrived at Mark Denny's favorite natural feature. Okay, we mentioned the diversity in this landscape earlier, and now I feel like I'm standing in a totally different state. Where are we, and can people come here, and how do they get here?
Well, absolutely. They can come out here, and welcome to Dripping Spring, one of the most spectacular natural features in Orange County. What's really amazing about it, though, is it's not just a spectacular natural feature, it's a bit of a cultural feature in that this was part of the functioning ranch. This was a natural water source that they used to bring water to the cattle and the sheep that they were raising on the Irvine Ranch. Now it's a natural water source for the wildlife that live in this open space. One of the things that's really cool to point out about this is when we were down on Loma Ridge, it had to be, what, 90 degrees today? It's a warm day today.
Easily. It was very hot.
So a little cooler here?
Yeah, I'd say, what do you think, 75?
I think so.
Now, what do we see in this area that we won't see other places?
Well, in this area specifically, and because Orange County is generally a pretty dry place, you don't see ferns growing naturally, and you see them all over the place here at Dripping Spring.
Right.
You also don't see native orchids, and this is the one place in Orange County where you can come and see native orchids literally growing out of the side of the hill. Now, they're not in bloom right now because it's not the time of year, but when it is that time of year, people love to come out and see what they are used to seeing in Hawaii, but they can actually see right here in Southern California.
So we can go from a very dry, arid place to a wet, almost tropical place within how many miles?
Oh boy, I think it's only 3 miles as the crow flies.
Yeah.
And it's a nice hike in the morning.
Where are we going next?
Well, we're going to go to see the Sinks. And the Sinks is Orange County's Grand Canyon. And this is a spectacular natural feature, certainly, but the Sinks is really a charismatic, unbelievable natural feature that you won't see anywhere else in Orange County.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Just as we arrived at the Sinks, Old Eagle Eye was at it again. What a special treat. We found another one of Orange County's residents. Mike, what is this animal?
This is a rosy boa. This is one of our native snakes that you might find in the North Ranch. They live in areas kind of like the Sinks, in rocky outcrops. Okay. And they're very, very gentle. People might have seen them at a nature center. They're actually commonly used for education. And they eat lizards and small rodents. They're a constrictor, and they're also non-venomous. They're not poisonous. But she's definitely one of our native snakes and a really important part of this ecosystem.
We put our friend away and began our tour of Orange County's very own version of the Grand Canyon.
We're standing at a geological formation called the Sinks, and it's one of the most spectacular places on the entire Irvine Ranch. It's an erosion feature that occurred a million years ago or so, and as you can see behind me, there's lots of layers of rock here. Most of it is sandstone, and it all has eroded and washed down into this canyon that we call Agua Chinone. It's a really popular place for people to come just for the view, frankly. Yeah. There is a tremendous amount of diversity in this landscape. It's one of the things that makes it so special, frankly. There are 14 different habitat types in Orange County, and 12 of them can be found on the Irvine Ranch. Wow. And then you have the diversity of these special sites we've been to, like Dripping Springs and the Sinks. If you go to Fremont Canyon, there are granite outcrops that kind of remind you a little bit of Yosemite. There's all sorts of diversity around the landscape. Some of the habitats that we have are coastal sage scrub, which is a rare Mediterranean climate habitat. We have native grassland, which is extremely rare in California. Only about 1% of the native grasslands in California still remain, and we have some beautiful patches here. There's chaparral. There are oak woodlands that provide lots of shade and nesting places for hawks and owls, and they're a great place to go hiking in the summertime when it's really hot. All kinds of diverse landscapes. And those diverse habitats lead to a lot of diverse wildlife. We have snakes and lizards. We have all kinds of birds, from little California gnatcatchers, which are a rare bird, to the red-tailed hawks that we've been hearing. We even have golden eagles on the ranch. We have bobcats and coyotes, skunks, mountain lions even. Several mountain lions are resident here on the property. And so you really get just about everything you can find in Southern California can be found right on these 20,000 acres.
Now, are there any endangered species on this ranch? And if there are, how do we protect those, or what do you do for them?
There are literally dozens of endangered species on these lands. Really? Exactly, yes. From plants like the Tecate cypress, which is a rare tree, to the California gnatcatcher bird, which is an endangered bird. A lot of the species that are really rare are not officially classified or not legally called endangered, but they are still very sensitive and very rare nonetheless. The best way to work on protecting those, in most cases, is to try to protect the habitats and the natural communities in which they live. And if we can do that successfully in a large landscape like this, we have a great chance at protecting most of the species that live there. There are some species that require intervention for them specifically. One of my favorite examples is the coastal cactus wren. It's a bird. You might have heard it. It makes sort of a glub, 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 glub sound when it calls, and it lives in old growth patches of cactus. However, a lot of these fires that we're having are so frequent that the cactus can't grow old enough to serve as nesting places for those cactus wrens, and so their populations have plummeted over time. One of the things the Irvine Ranch Conservancy is doing to help cactus wrens is we've created an artificial cactus nesting box program where we're putting out artificial nest boxes for these cactus wrens so that they have a place to nest that's kind of like a bridge until the cactus grows old enough for them. And we've actually been successful. We've had cactus wrens nest and fledge young there. So favorite examples of how we balance people and nature is in Limestone Canyon with these beautiful oak woodlands. The oak woodlands are an extremely popular spot for people to hike. They're very charismatic. They're very spectacular. You saw them today. They're really wonderful. And but they also happen to be the place where most of the hawks and owls, we call them raptors, most of the raptors in Orange County nest in areas like this. And they nest in the springtime, and they're extremely sensitive to disturbance. And so what we do is we find out where the nests are, and we actually close those areas for a period of time in the spring to any human activity so that the hawks and owls can go about raising their kids. And once the kids leave the nest and are gone, then we open them back up again.
After spending just a short time with these men, it became apparent what a significant role they play.
It takes a lot more than you might imagine to manage land of this size. People think that when you set aside a big landscape, you just sort of let nature take its course, and in fact, everything's going to be fine. Well, that turns out not to be the case. And for a number of reasons, the primary reason, which is that this is all surrounded by developed land, and there's a lot of human impact on this land, whether you realize it or not. One of the biggest ones is fire. The fire frequency on this land has increased dramatically over the last 50 years. We used to get fires on the order of every 60 years, maybe every 100 years, and these habitats are adapted to that fire interval. But we're now getting fires on the order of 6 to 10 years. Managing fire is a huge challenge that we work with. Another thing that it takes is managing what we call invasive species. Those are exotic species that are not native to this area, and they can come in and change some of these really rare habitats if we don't carefully manage them. It takes a lot of effort to connect people to the land too. One of the pieces of the mission is bringing people out, getting them to fall in love with the land and understand it. I think everyone who gets to experience this place really enjoys it. You could leave the land alone, and what would happen is it would just slowly degrade over time. But if you really want to take care of it and have it in the condition that it's in now for our children and our grandchildren, then it actually takes some effort.
And after seeing all this incredible landscape, are you ready to explore it?
The trail system is really nationally renowned. There's opportunities for hiking, for stargazing, for bird watching. Some of the best mountain biking in the world can be found here, and this is a place that equestrians just love.
Currently, how many miles of trail systems are available to the public now?
Well, just on the Irvine Ranch open space, there's about 250 miles of trail to explore. Many of the trails really started as ranch roads. You know, this was part of California's most productive ranch historically. It's really going to be fine-tuning it and building the trail system from an old ranch road system that was built for vehicles and ranch carts and those types of things to a system that's really built for people.
So now that OC Parks is managing this new land, what kind of programs are available to the public?
Well, there was about a program a day last year, and so the idea is to continue that and increase the number of opportunities for people to get out and connect. There are programs to ride your bike. There are programs to go for a hike or a run, to do some training if you're training for a marathon or 10K race. There's opportunities to get out and see the stars. We work with partners like the Orange County Astronomy Club to do astronomy night hikes, opportunities to go out and see birds and wildflowers, and these great things that are called wilderness access days, where we meet in different parts of the land and we basically let folks go out and explore on their own. And
one option is to get out on your own, and another option is to go out with a guide.
Absolutely, and there are different types of docent-led hikes.
So what's the benefit of going on one of the docent-led hikes?
Well, you know, every time you and I go out, we always wonder, what is that plant? What's that flower? I've never seen that before. And these docents are amazing. They've been through a lot of training. Some of them have gone to school beyond the training. And so they're the Wikipedia of the land, but they're in human form.
And these programs, how much do they cost?
They're free. That's the benefit of this being public land.
So our lucky residents now have all this new land. They want to come see it. How do they find out about the programs that are available? Where do they go?
Well, we've got a great website that's called irlandmarks.org, and it actually has all of the different landowners all throughout the ranch. So obviously OC Parks is one of them, the City of Irvine, California State Parks, anyone who has parks and open space that have opportunities on the land. All of those opportunities are presented on that website. You can go online, you can sign up, you can go for a mountain bike ride, you can go out and do some birding, you can go for a hike, you can train for your next marathon. Whatever you want to do, you can do.
I'm Dave Ihrig. Thanks for joining Irvine Scene, where I hope you've learned more about this natural landmark, how spectacular it really is, and how you can enjoy it. I'll see you on the trail.